Hey everybody, welcome back. Stephen here, Northwest Small Batch Brewing. It is time for another brew talk because I am in the middle of a brew session. I have a beer fermenting, smells very good. I can't wait to try it and show you guys what I've got going on. So in between, we'll talk about a topic. So this is sort of a basic brew topic, meaning I feel like if you want to be a good brewer and you're just getting into it, and you don't know what to do, what to buy, one of the places you can start is trying to educate yourself on the brewing process. If you don't know how, why this stuff you're putting in water turns into beer and alcohol, then it's hard to make changes and adjustments if you don't even know the process itself. So let's start with grain. Like, how in the heck are we taking grain and making it into beer? How does that become beer? Well, let's start with what is grain, because even this, not everybody really understands. I mean, it looks like little seeds, right? Like you know, the little seeds you get that have all the flavorings and stuff. It's like sunflower seeds or whatever. Obviously, it's not. But basically, it's a type of grass. So we're talking about barley, and its variants are basically grass, essentially. And so we're taking the seeds from that grass. So the first step in dealing with this grain before we ever get it is it has to be malted, and that is done by a malting company, sometimes called maltsters, right? That malt and there's lots of them around. You've seen the names on bags: Breese, Dingman's, Great Western. I mean, there's a ton, right? Gambrinus. Anyway, you have to do something with that grain. You can't just use it right off of the, after it's been picked or whatever, because it's not going to do what you need it to do. Essentially, we're stealing the life from these pieces of grain so that they never will see the day of life. So here's what happens. Light of day. That's what I meant to say. First thing, we have to get it malting. So they take the seeds. These are dry, hard seeds. And we're going to add moisture. We're going to put them in water of some way or another. I've seen people just use paper towels and keeping the paper towels wet. It takes about 40 to 48 hours. So we're talking like a week, maybe less, I guess, if you don't count the evening hours. But it takes a little while to soak in that water. And when it starts soaking in that water, the moisture content of the grain starts to increase. It's sort of like rice. It starts absorbing that water, and you go from like 12% or less moisture up to like 44% increase in moisture. This hydration, right, giving water to these pieces of grain, kickstarts this natural phenomenon called enzyme activation. There's enzymes in the grain, and the water activates those enzymes. What we're mostly worried about is alpha amylase, beta amylase, proteasase, I should have said that wrong, and glucanase. Now, we're all familiar, I'm sure, with alpha amylase and beta amylase. If not, I have videos to talk about it, but you definitely need to know about those in the brewing process, and this is where it starts. So it also, adding water and hydration also starts to produce hormones and what we call germination, right? Life, basically. So let's move on to germination. So you started the malting process. It's absorbed the liquid. They got nice and plump, and now they start to germinate. What does germinating mean? Well, it means that the seed grains that are under a controlled environment with temperature and humidity, right? You've added the water. Now you're controlling heat, right? To make it think that it's springtime. It takes about 3 to 6 days. Obviously, this is not exact, but in average, for the grains to start to develop what they call rootlets, or shoots that become what we call green malt. So what happens is the enzymes in the grain start to break down the starch. You have your alpha and beta amylase that I just talked about, right? That converts the starch to fermentable sugar. That should be like a ding, ding, ding noise in your head if you haven't heard this before, right? Because what does the yeast need in order to eat and produce alcohol and live? It needs sugar. So we could just feed it table sugar, but we're feeding it sugar that's coming from the grain that's supposed to be for that little rootlet. That's supposed to be a little bit of food and energy for that little rootlet to grow into a new plant. But instead, we're just getting it to the point where it's producing that sugar. And then I'll get to this in a second, but then we're gonna halt that, and we're not gonna allow that plant to grow. So the other enzyme that we sometimes will talk about is glucanase. It's not as prevalent, it's not as an active thing that we think about as alpha and beta amylase, but glucanase breaks down the cell walls to improve your mash filtration. So it is important, it's just not something we really think about actively when we're brewing. So now is when we kill the yeast, right? Now we want, or yeast, ooh, I got yeast on the mind. Now is when we're gonna kill the enzyme. We're gonna kill that little rootlet because we don't want it to eat all the sugar, the starch that's been, converted to sugar. We want that sugar for our yeast. So we're gonna kiln it or dry it. Kiln, K-I-L-N. So we dry the malt. It halts the germination, and it reduces the moisture in that seed back down to about 5%. So as it's drying, it's drawing the moisture out of the seed again into a nice dry hard seed. This will, as I said, halt your enzyme activity, but it doesn't destroy the alpha and beta amylase, which are obviously key during your mash cycle in brewing. Because depending on your mash temperature, you're activating one of those enzymes, and that's whether you're going to get more or less fermentable sugars. So you get a sweeter or drier beer at the end. All right, kilning also develops color and flavor through, we've heard this in the cooking area, the Maillard reaction, right? Lighter kilns yield pale malts like 2 rows, and darker kilns produce richer, darker flavors in the malts. So, in summary, the whole process here. During germination, the enzymes are produced or activated thanks to moisture and oxygen. That's why you're soaking the seeds initially. During the kilning, the enzyme activity is halted but preserved for later use when you're mashing it in your beer. Enzymes are the powerhouse when it comes to brewing. They transform starches into fermentable sugar. They break down proteins for your yeast nutrition, and they help with mash efficiency and mash clarity. Now, I will throw up a picture for you if I remember. I will try, kind of with the whole process, but that's basically the gist of it. So that's where you're getting the sugar from. That's why it's important to mill your grain properly. You got to get to the starch and the sugars that are inside the grain. And that's also why some people double mill their grain, because they want to be absolutely sure they're getting everything from it. Otherwise, you could be leaving stuff, in the bag, as they say. All right, I'll leave it at that. I'll be back in another week with another video. I'll try to do some more of these videos where we talk about the sort of process of brewing and what you need to know in order to understand the entire brew process. In the meantime, have a beer, relax, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.